And may I now call on stage to join me five, in fact, Mr. Cristjan Bael. Hi, Cristjan. Business lead for external affairs, growth, and global competitiveness. Have a seat, sir. Then, of course, our favorite, Dr. Sergio Ortiz-Luis, President and CEO of the Philippine Exporters Confederation. A round of applause, please. More energy from the audience. There you go. And then also joining us in this panel, Mr. Bobby Batungbacal, Vice President for Industry Development at SteelAsia. He brings with him decades of experience driving industrial policy and manufacturing innovation. Then we have Mr. Earl Lawrence Kwa, Vice President of Ionics-EMS Inc. and President of the Electronics Industry Association of the Philippines, a leader in advancing smart manufacturing and AI-driven technologies. Hi, Earl. And of course, last but not least, Ms. Maritess Jocson-Agoncillo, Executive Director of the Confederation of Wearable Exporters of the Philippines, with extensive experience in trade negotiations and export advocacy. All right, gentlemen, lady, again, guys, warm round of applause for our panel number one. All right. So I'm going to start the questions and then open the floor to questions from the audience. So please do join us, participate. Don't forget to take photos, post it online. Just don't forget to use our hashtags. All right. Are we ready? Good. I want to start with my opening question is, as a curtain raiser, just to give us the lay of the land, what you see from your perch. I want to quote Donald Trump. And he said, "It is a giant, beautiful store, and everybody wants to go shopping there. And on behalf of the American people, I own this store, and I set the prices. And I'll say, if you want to shop here, this is what you have to pay." So my question to our panelists here is, what do you have in this store? Talk to us about your inventory in Trump's department store. How is it looking today? And are you looking at a potential supply shock or demand shock in the near term? Maybe we start here, ladies first. Ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Maritess, garments. Trump's store is basically what everyone is wearing. And that's my group: apparel, shoes, and bag. And Trump's store, the total U.S. imports apparel, shoes, and bags is about 400 million US dollars a year. The global market is about 1.8. Okay, so the US market is big. It's one homogeneous market. It's just small, medium, and large. That's Trump's store. Size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in shoes. That's Trump's store. So it's a very, very lucrative, eye-catching market. Okay. If you dive, just to emphasize it, the European store would be a bit different when it comes to sizing. So it's a little more difficult to enter into. So that's our store. It's a big store. And do you want to know how much?
How much inventory do you have in Trump's store?
Our inventory in the store is basically close to 1.8 billion. That's our share in the U.S. market for dollars. $1.8 billion. That's basically apparel, textile, shoes, and bags exports to the U.S.
All right. Thank you for that. That's your store. Earl, what do you have in Trump's store?
Well, we are in electronics manufacturing. From last time I checked, the semiconductor and electronics export globally is about 45 billion US dollars. From Ionics point of view, we have electronics manufacturing, design, and other types of services that we cater to the United States. And given the shifting geopolitical situation, both from the China politics as well as the tariff currently being imposed, there is a potential strategic shift towards the Philippines as a new venue. We saw that in Trump 1.0, Vietnam was a big benefactor of that. And as in Trump 2.0, we see a potential that the Philippines might be able to partake in that as well. And so that's basically how we want to position ourselves in this new global situation.
Earl, how much of your business is with the US?
Roughly, if you look at the because there's direct and indirect customers. So we have customers who we engage with that are from, let's say, Israel, but shipped to the United States, right? So it's very hard to say, but roughly in terms of value of goods sold, potentially 20-30% of
Wow,
our
20-30%. All right.
Yeah.
How about you, Bobby?
Well, my story is a little different. I represent a company, SteelAsia, that is not an exporter to the US. But I think the perspective that I could share today is what would be the impact of this changes in trade to domestic producers, no? Especially when you talk about diversion of goods from other countries going to the Philippines. And that's what I want to talk about. In steel, as SteelAsia, which is a leading producer of steel, our products is for the domestic market. But you'd also be surprised that we've also started exporting, and we can talk about that later.
To which countries are you exporting?
Canada, actually.
Bago
lang yun.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah, but
Why
this happened. Well, this happened before the tariff. I wouldn't say it's because of the Trump tariffs, no. But I think it shows that even domestic producers, once you get it right, you're able to compete given the right circumstances, no.
One quick question, Bobby. What are the chances that the foreign companies, the Vietnamese companies, will flood the local market with their products that they can't sell to America anymore? Are you worried about that? Are you starting to see that?
I think everybody thinks about that, no? But that's why it's important, like a former USEC Fita talked about our defensive mechanism, no? This defensive mechanism has always been in place, but we're probably not the best practitioner of this one, no? When you think about anti-dumping, the safeguard and countervailing duties. In fact, in a recent report of World Bank, just a couple of days ago, you'll see that the Philippines is probably one of the least user of these measures, no? And by the way, to do that, it probably take you a year.
And why is that? Why are we the least user mechanisms?
Well, it's probably either industry is not quick to do so, and also our partners in government is not able to translate that very fast. I'll give you an example. If it takes us a year to investigate an issue like that, Vietnam is able to do that in 120 days. No? So there are provisional measures to implement it. And with this new tariffs, I think we need to be able to do that in 90 days.
All right. More on that later, Dr. Sergio. What about you, sir?
Well, I don't represent a particular product, no. So our store is the store of, we are the umbrella organization. So I'd rather speak of all those exporting to the US. That is 15 sectors in my association. So basically, I would depend the question, what is this to the others? What are the players?
What about Dr. Sergio? Let me rephrase the question. You represent 15 sectors. Which sector is in trouble?
Well, basically, you have the one.
The wearables,
Right.
garments.
Was in trouble. The wearables and furniture is one. We're trying to do that. Agricultural products, some of the other items.
I agree. All right. Cristjan.
Hello. So I represent semiconductors and electronics, and as Dr. Fitas, has mentioned in this forum, we are the top commodity export. So as per values, March 2025, that's the latest data that we have from the Philippine Statistics Authority. And this is pre-Trump.
Pre-Liberation Day.
Yeah.
Before
pre-Liberation
April
Day.
2.
So we have yet to see the impact of the reciprocal tariffs on our sector. But as of March 2025, we had an uptick of 2%. So it became $3.96 billion of our export, total export, and 15.4% of this 3.96 goes to the United States. So in terms to answer the question of how is our store in terms of the Trump department store, we have yet to see the impact really in terms of value. But definitely when Trump announced the tariffs, we already heard from since SAPI is a industry association, we have already heard from our member organizations that orders decreased from the US. So in terms of value, we have yet to see once PSA released the April 2025 data so that we could compare March 2025 to April 2025. And hopefully when June 2025 data comes in, we could see a trend to validate these claims. But for now, I think that's what I can say.
All right. But Cristjan, I spoke to Dan Lachica about a month ago, and he said he thinks it's net positive for you guys. In fact, he was sharing, he got a call from 2 or 3 foreign companies already looking at the Philippines to expand. I mean, you did see a surge of investments in the last 18 months. Sumitomo Metal Mining is ramping up nickel operations. Who else? Samsung Electronics just moved their R&D to Batangas, right? GE is now sourcing their critical semiconductors from Philippine companies. So it seems like you are a net beneficiary.
Yes, there's a lot of dimensions to it, if I may add. There's reduction, recalibration, so reduction of orders and recalibration in terms of supply chain, especially with the highlight China Plus One strategy. So there's a lot of dimensions to it. We could talk about that later, but definitely once the April 2025 data comes in, we can see a more tangible or a more validated claim of the effect of this reciprocal tariffs.
Maritess, in 2024, the wearables industry contracted 4%.
I think about 3. End of, yeah.
3% contraction last year. You're targeting a 6% growth this year, correct?
Yes.
Is that pre or post-Trump tariff?
Okay. Let me qualify why we are in trouble. Okay. And I need it's a bit on the technical side because even before the pre-announcement on April 2, you have to remember my industry is already in trouble because I have about 5,815 lines, tariff lines. I'm involved in 15 chapters because it's apparel, textile, shoes, and bags. Okay, if I can show one slide just to summarize.
All right.
They have
it. Can we
it's-
flash the slide?
Can you flash the slide on the page 1? Okay, it's a bit complicated because without the 46% to Vietnam or the 17% to the Philippines announcement, we are already paying duties and taxes. Okay, so because we are not enjoying any preference status compared to electronics. Okay.
All right, here.
So
This
okay.
is it.
This is my magic card. Why I am in trouble. Okay. So my group basically is chapters 42, which is bags, leather goods. Chapter 64 down is your shoes. And in between that, chapter 50 to 63 is textile and apparel. Okay. Within these lines, omit chapter on I think the carpets. We are in 15 chapters covering about 5,800 for tariff lines. Okay. I'm sorry I'm seated on it.
Go ahead. Let me stand with you.
Highlight, yeah. Chapter 61 and 62 is already my priority lines. These are the 2 items, the two products that can really get hit, because these are the finished products, articles of apparel that's needs and chapter 61, and articles of apparel wovens, that's chapter 62. And you can see between these two chapters, pants, jeans, my suit basically is entering the United States at 32% tariff.
Oh.
Even without the April 2 announcement. Okay, your jeans is already at 14.9 tariff going into America. So kami, we are 14.9 plus 10 or plus 17. So we are 32 plus 10 or plus 17.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's to simplify it. Okay, so that's why I'm really in trouble. Yeah. So that's one that is one clear thing. Even for footwear, I think footwear is an average of 10 to 15%. Bags is an average of 10 to 20%.
Just to put a little bit of color, our knitted or crocheted clothing apparel, 14.5% to 32% tariff when we sell to America. How much is the tariff on those made in Vietnam? It's the same.
That's the because
It's a level playing field.
it's a level playing field. So at the moment, you're not seeing any movement, especially when he announced back to 10% drawing board. So it's a level playing field. This is what we have been encountering, because this group, this 15 chapters, is one of the carved out chapters in the WTO multi-fiber agreement that is still operating under the rules of origin. So that's it.
Maritess, is there a line in the sand where you say this is where we break?
Break? Where we break what
where the industry dies.
Yes.
This is it. It doesn't make sense.
This is a very critical moment for the industry.
Will it die at 17%? Additional
well,
on top of the 15 to 32,
yeah,
another 17.
If Cambodia and Vietnam would get a little higher than 17, then I still can exist. As long as my ASEAN counterparts would have a higher number, I have a silver of lining hope.
Playing devil's advocate here, Maritess, what if it all comes down to technology?
Oh.
That 20% difference between our tariff 17 and 36, 19% difference. Can Vietnam just decide to, you know what, I'll bite the bullet, I'll buy the latest technology, which will give me efficiency, boost productivity, pagalingan na lang to absorb the cost.
Okay.
Can that cover the difference, that 19% difference that you think is your silver lining?
No. Do you know why? We are one of the unique industries that still rely on human hands. Technology can play. We import machines. You know, there's an ILO study and even a World Bank study that why are we the favored labor-intensive industry? We are actually an industry that can really propel economic development. Because to simplify and to expound, kahit bali-baliktarin mo kasi, the machines can operate. It can cut the fabric. You know, it's the whole chain of production, from textile fabrication, from getting it from the farms, from the cotton, putting it in between into the machines. No, textile fabrication. Once you go into garment manufacture, once you go to shoes manufacture, once you go to bag manufacture, the dexterity of the hands is still important. Okay, there's the impact of technology is there, but it will still it will not even AI. You still need human hands to form the product, because they're very sensitive. Hindi pwedeng technology yung bawat sleeves mo, no? They're very sensitive.
All right. Thank you, Maritess. Dr. Sergio, for Phil Export, sir, we've got the second lowest reciprocal tariff at 17%. Are there products of ours that you feel would become less competitive because of the tariffs? Because I was looking at the list of reciprocal tariffs. Ang lamang lang naman sa atin is Singapore, 10%. Congo, 11%. Mozambique, 16%. Norway, 15%. Venezuela, 15%. And Zambia, 17%. So tariff-wise, if you take out the efficiencies, productivity, and tariff-wise.
Well, actually, let me go back to the study and to the presentation earlier. No? And it is nice that we are looking at all these probabilities. But I read this tariff differently. I watched the interviews of Trump before the election, President Trump before the election. And he was categorically saying that he doesn't want to use sanctions anymore, even for Russia. He said, maybe I will use tariff when I get elected. But basically on the same interview, he also said that what we don't want to lose is the supremacy of the dollars. Because if we do, then we lost the war. And so my assumption here is tariff, he weaponized tariff. But we are looking probably at the wrong reason why. Tariff, as presented here, is just a tool for him. It is not the end game. It's not a question of balancing trade. Look at what Singapore is the lowest, 10%. Why even put tariff on Singapore? They are positive against Singapore. My feeling is they would just like Singapore to use Singapore as to put peer pressure on the other ASEAN countries to get what his real purpose is. The real purpose, I think, is which will accomplish what we are saying, manufacturing, going back or whatever, is to retain dollar. And I think he wants to stop BRICS. And that is why you will notice in the changes, if we keep looking at these numbers, we'll end up crazy because every week it changes. I don't even understand why all of a sudden China's trade, which is the purpose of all this thing, is suspended. And so what are these 90 countries negotiating, doing, offering? We cannot offer anything because we are not part of the dollar attack. We're not part of BRICS. We're not, we're such a small market. We could not negotiate and make any offer to the US because we have already given what they want. And the only thing that we can offer if we negotiate is probably to protect other industries or to make lower, will be from agriculture, which we cannot afford anymore. There's nothing we can offer. And besides, we are in a good position, as mentioned earlier. So we have to watch what is developed. And we have to keep talking to USDR to make sure to tell them, well, we are alive, we're your partner. Please, if there is any benefit, there is any suspension, please include us. Do not include us on the. We just have to keep them aware that we are alive and kicking, and we are a partner. And I don't think we have to come and negotiate and offer anything because there's nothing we can offer.
Can we offer, sir, something more political?
Pardon?
Something more political? EDCA, for example? More...
Something more.
Can we offer something more political? EDCA, for example?
Geopolitics is
Geopolitics.
What do we have to offer? We have given them already.
That's a fair
We're
point.
the only one in ASEAN who is, I guess, in the same position as them, geopolitics-wise. So I guess we just have to keep our eyes open at the development, but let's not think of offering anything because there is nothing we can offer at the moment.
Dr. Sergio, I just want you mentioned agriculture. It was brought up earlier. I was talking to Ernie Ordonez, who is a big advocate, and he was saying we should ask the US to exempt Philippine agriculture because the US does not have a deficit with us in agriculture. In fact, he says the US exports 2.5 times more than what we sell to them. Do you think that is something acceptable for our US counterparts?
I do not know. I'm not so sure what we can. The problem is if we offer anything and we don't offer them to our neighbors or China, it will put us deeper in trouble. After all, as I said, our export in the US is so small, we don't even matter. We're just bystander, collateral damage if ever, or collateral. So I think we should be very careful on this. We should keep watching. We should keep tracking. And if there is nothing towards that will put us in the disadvantage, right now we are advantaged theoretically, but there are so many exceptions coming up. We don't know whether we will be disadvantaged. Our supply chain might really be disturbed. And we should be very careful about that.
I think Bobby wants to comment on one of the things you just mentioned. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yes. I think significant as it is, I think we in the Philippines should take this opportunity to further our industrialization. Because sometimes the question is, oh, does this mean that because of all of the challenges, we're going to experience deindustrialization as a result? No. Kasi first of all, one thing, we got to realize that industry policy is now rapidly being implemented by almost every country, led by Western countries. We avoided industry policy in the previous decades, no? But now is the time to implement them and grow our own industries, whether it's export or whether it's domestic. But of course, my purview is the domestic. And I think we're one of those countries with a robust domestic demand, no? So in terms of steel, while SteelAsia, by the way, is 60 years old already. So we have a very long term. This will happen, and many crises will happen. It happened in the past. It will happen in the future. But you have to keep on working on your domestic capability, and then perhaps in the future you'll be able to export. No, so I think that kind of mindset is very important for us. This will happen. More things will happen, but we have to keep on working on industrializing.
Bobby, just very quickly, because you did say you are 100% domestic for your sales. You're starting to export to Canada. What about raw materials? How does your supply chain look like for raw materials? Where do you get your raw materials?
Oh, good question. Steel comes from iron ore, no? But this is where which is not so much here in the Philippines. So it may come from Brazil, can come from Russia, it can come from China, elsewhere, Australia, no? Pero this is where technology comes in. SteelAsia is putting up 3 plants, and all of them are based on electric arc furnace that uses scrap metal. No?
Recycled na.
Recycled, no? So did you know that if you do scrap metal with especially with our renewable energy, we're able to produce green steel, which is 90% lower carbon emission than blast furnace from China. So that's where technology comes in.
Will it be cheaper? Will it mean cheaper?
No, it won't be. It won't be. Like most new innovations, it won't be. But long term, and when you think about the impact on the environment, I think it's something that we should pursue.
Speaking of industrialization, Earl, you are you're also setting up new facilities, right?
Yes, so two new
new
buildings, coming up
buildings.
in Malvar. Yeah.
All right. Is this in preparation? Do you think this is the way you prepare for when the Philippines becomes a net benefactor of Trump 2.0?
I
Is
think,
this enough?
yeah, post April 2nd, we did see an uptick
All right.
An uptick of interest, and not just us, but also our other companies within our industry. And so we did see that a lot of that actually is coming from Taiwan and even China, who currently have their manufacturing base in Vietnam. And so there has been that type of discussions going on. But having said that, a lot of it is data collection for potential simulation as far as implementation is concerned. I think they're waiting for the 90-day extension to expire and then see how the card falls. Again, we're like in the game of musical chairs, and the music is playing, and then when the music stops, we see where everything false, right? At this point, everyone is on, okay, let's get as much information and try to create as many scenarios, and then we pick one of those options to choose from.
And how quickly can you execute from the moment you pick the scenario?
So that's right. So there are,
Because Trump is 4 years.
yeah, so there were a couple. I had that conversation with a Japanese bank who has a manufacturing group, and they said, yeah, it takes about 6 to 8 months to plan, but 18 months to implement, whether choosing a site, facilitizing, hiring the people, and then another 2 years of ramping up. And so by that time you implement, iba na yung presidente ng
You just
ng
pray
US.
that the policy stays
Yeah,
the
so a lot of folks are waiting and seeing. That's their game. They wait and see. The middle ground, from what we've seen so far, is that let's use the current capacity. Because right now there are a couple of local players that can ramp up at least in the short term, and then you could either do straight out outsource or do some kind of a captive line, where, all right, let's work with you on an existing facility, you hire from us, and then we just manage it for you. Parang it's sort of a middle ground. And then if in 2 to 3 years, if things work in our direction in terms of geopolitics and the politics in the US, then we either move towards a more long-term investment or not. And so it's based on the conversations that we had. There are two things moving the states. One is more in the China-US tension, and then the other one is more on, shall we say, politics, or ideological leaning of one particular political group, no?
local
in the states, right?
in the States.
So one is forever. So in Trump 1, China and the US, Biden basically continued whatever Trump initially implemented. But in this situation where, let's say, the global trade war, where it's shotgun approach to all different countries, I don't think that the other party would continue those policies if they come into power in the next election. So one is a more steady, and the other one is more fickle, and so it's very hard to make decisions based on that. Yeah.
So you have several scenarios. Just very quickly, Earl, I'm curious, what is your most aggressive expansion plan scenario? If you do decide to, I'm going to ride this wave of us benefiting from Trump 2.0. How many more factories are you building?
Like we can't comment on that. So we'll just wait until July 9.
Ano lang, kindat na lang.
We'll have to wait for July 9.
It's have to be the Trump 2.0 that you ride. It can be after. If I can just share a personal experience, I actually joined an HP trip to South Korea about 10 years ago. Because I was with a group of printers, printing. They do print. They print boxes, labels. At that time, 10 years ago, there were 3 Filipino companies in that trip. So HP usually hosts these things where they show you the state-of-the-art technologies, encouraging you to buy. There was only one from Vietnam, and we were talking to the Vietnam company. And we asked, why are you only one? And they were saying, they just took a chance on us. Our printing industry is so small. They had no machines. All their machines were secondhand. Expensive, but secondhand. Last year, 9 years after, we found out that Vietnamese peer we were in the trip with just bought the Rolls Royce of the printing machines that HP was selling. They did not buy one. They bought 3. And their printing industry is so big now. And we asked, so what did that company end up printing? What brought them the volumes? Guess what? Hang tags. Sa likod ng damit, the hang tags. And we asked, how can it be so big? They rode on the growth of their garments industry. So they were saying it wasn't a switch we flipped overnight. We were building several industries. And when the moment was ripe, the stars aligned, the industries were ready, we all rode on it. So I guess that is maybe a lesson to learn about Vietnam's magic. Bobby, you want to share something?
Yes, that's why we want to emphasize that industry and company has to be long term. No, it's not reactionary. It's not taking advantage of something that may not be there in the future. It has to be long term, which is why I also want to bring up legislature. We had 2 new laws, Create More and Tatak Pinoy. These have long-term implications to industry. No, Create More is have started already. Tatak Pinoy is almost at the gate. IRR. We're all looking forward to that because these are the things that can change the landscape long term, and that's why we're very excited about that.
Bobby, you opened the floodgates to a very important question: policy. We have a new set of policymakers, LGUs as well, executives. Just a pulse check from the room. And this stays in this room. How confident are you about the next 3 years seeing the names of the winning candidates? Okay. Then I'm very confident change is coming. We're at the cusp of breaking out. 1, 5, naku, business as usual. Okay na din. We can do it. We'll just ride it out. Or 1, I'm afraid. Pulse check. Can I see a raise of hands? Who in this room feels very confident? A 10 when they look at the winning list from the midterm polls. This is it. We are ready. We are about to take off. 10. Policy-wise, legislative branch, local executives, no 10. 9. 8. 7. Okay, 3, 5, 6. 6, 5. 5. Business as usual. 4. 3, 2, close your eyes. 1. Okay, parang wala namang 1. That's quite encouraging. So I now throw the question before I open the floor. To questions from the audience members. Maybe one round here. What are the critical policy reforms that you think will make or break us in this pivotal moment? Dr. Sergio, go ahead, sir.
Since you started this thing, I would like to see what is happening in tariff as a wake-up call to our politicians, to our newly elected, that they have really, not abandoned, forgotten export. We're the most unsupported export industry in the whole of Asia. We don't even have funds for export development. We don't have funds for R&D for export. Our SME sector, many of whom are exporters, are the most underbanked sector in Asia. Thailand, our 2019 support for the SME was 11.6 billion in lending, as against Thailand of $190 billion. The nearest to us is Indonesia with $70 billion. And for export promotion, it's an embarrassment. There's so many international shows that we should be joining. We are not, because there's no fund. The very few that we're able to join with, our booths is an embarrassment, because there is no funding. and all these things, we are asking for some funding for export. DTI is the one in the forefront, no? DOST, to be able to develop. The budget of DTI, DOST, and DITC, if you combine them together, it's in the one of the smallest. We gave away money the last month. So is yung CCT, conditional trust. The last I saw before it was made PPP was $87 billion. No? 87 billion pesos. No? 15 billion of which is dedicated only to monitor. The combined budget, it's not even the budget of DSW, it's just a project. The combined budget of DTI, DICT at that time is less than 15 billion. And yet, what do we expect from DTI, for instance, to develop trade, to and there's no budget. When we go there to the legislature to ask for budgets, they will ask us, where will you get it? And they will not even entertain the issue of getting it partly from the mga giveaway monies, no? Where there is no return. That's the problem, I think. And even in the ease of doing business is the other problem. We're able to solve that because ARTA, in a way, is helping a lot, no? But there is still a lot of legislation or policy to have to take. There is, for instance, agencies that make it difficult for exporter. PPA, for instance, regulatory function, and are still the same. They keep raising expenses. We have a beautiful example of LLDA. LLDA, they should be supporting the Laguna Lake, but they're regulating. You have to, if you are putting up a karaoke bar in Caloocan, you have to register with them, and I don't know why.
I can feel the frustration, sir. But thank you for the thoughts. We will make sure to list them down. We want to make them hear what we have to say. Next, Cristjan, why don't
Yes,
you very quickly? We have about 2 more minutes.
Okay. So while we welcome the implementation, or at least the signing of Create More Act and the recently signed AO 31, we're actually quite anticipating how AO 31 would play out, considering it hasn't yet been convened. Plus of how Create More Act, the IRR will trickle down to the LGUs, especially with the implementation of the R belt.
Okay.
So that's quite new.
All right, Bobby.
Okay. For me, I think most urgent is our defense, no? Trade defense rather. Our laws on duties, countervailing, and safeguards, they're 30 years old. Standards. Did you know that our building code was the last it was updated was 1977? That's 50 years old. So those are priorities because these are the ones that protect and grow local industries.
All right, Earl.
So, Dr. Ortiz-Luis mentioned R&D, and especially in the technology industry, R&D is critical. And one of the things that made China so sticky is that, and even Taiwan, is that is their evolution into what you call ODM, original design manufacturing. So, the U.S. Corporate is quite lazy, right? They want to minimize their activity as much. So basically what happens is, okay, this is the spec, you design it for us, and we'll buy from you, stick our label on it. That's basically the ODM strategy of like Taiwan and China. And so what happened was, when you're trying to pull out, the design belongs to your supplier. And so even if they wanted to shift to the Philippines or whatever, it has become very cumbersome. And so what we see now is that we receive a product, a device. Can you please reverse engineer that, because we don't have the design of our own product?
Oh.
And so that becomes a critical piece of the puzzle in terms of, at least on the electronic side. And so our design capability has become fairly critical in converting a lot of these opportunities into actual outcome. And so I think the Philippine workforce has to have a more design thinking mentality, and if you want to really harvest and harness this shift in
And do you have the engineering team
yes.
to do the reverse
Yeah,
engineer? You do?
we want
with the high-tech, cutting-edge
yeah
expertise
design.
for this? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
All right. And Maritess?
Okay. Two things. On the short term, I think the Philippine government really needs to address the tariff issue with the US. I think it's about time. I think the negotiating team left in May 2. There has been an initial discussion. For the industry, there would be specific industries that needs to be carved out. Okay, like I think I'll be carved out from the negotiation as a sectoral part, because you're still looking at 3 to 4 years down the line if it's a Trump administration. And our life cycle, unlike him, is very fast. We can move factories in 6 months. We're set up in 6 months. We can put our machines in 40-footer container. In 30 days, it's around, you can set it up. Okay, that's a short term. On the long term, it's a consistency on the implementation of existing laws. Bobby discussed it earlier, like the CREATE law and the is there, but the consistency of the government messaging and the pronouncements on this and the implementation, the IRR should be in place. I think that's what the Philippine government economic team should be looking into.
All right. We have a minute to entertain maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience members. Do we have questions from the audience members? Yes, sir. Maybe 1 quick question from sir and 1 quick question for ma'am. All right. Microphone will be handed to you. Let's keep it short. We're running out of time, but this is a good problem. A great problem, in fact. Go ahead, sir. Your name, please.
Norbert Chinquanco. We're in fish farming.
Okay, fish
To
farming.
export shrimp and bangus, value added to 30-some countries. Miss Vita, Doctor, I think we should also look at, there must be some wisdom in this Trump tariff. And the wisdom may be contagious over time. That is, no country can continue to be in deficit forever. Number 2, whatever export we encourage should have higher domestic value. Look at what happened to Vietnam. They became transshipments from China. So their export to US and other countries, boom. But the long-term effect is that they have the highest tariff. So there are people who are saying, jackpot tayo, let's encourage more investors in the Philippines to move their factories, do what they're doing to export to US. But if the local component is small, will be harming the whole country's future tariff. And last item, trade policy, trade defense. We have reduced our tariff. Like in our industry, our raw material have tariff, but our competing finished goods are 0 tariff. And more than the tariff, the other part is non-tariff measure. Within WTO rules, it's not, non-tariff measures are not bad. In fact, the simplest way is, like the other gentleman mentioned, we shouldn't allow import of what other countries do not allow. May laban tayo if we impose the same rules. If we do not allow what US do not allow to bring into the US, then we won't be baksakan ng surplus goods. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. And then we have 1 more from ma'am, the lady in green. Do we have a microphone for her? Parehong green. Sige, si ma'am muna and then we'll go to you, ha, ma'am? Go ahead, ma'am. Your name po? No, your name and your question.
I'm Susan Amoroso from the
Susan.
Maritime Sector, Maritime Journalists Association of the Philippines. My question is about the current we have been seeing posts from companies selling Chinese products, saying that you do not have to pay taxes and it will be easier for Filipinos and everywhere around the world to import from China. Will that will that pose a negative effect on the Philippines, since we will be importing goods from China when in fact we want to export? We want to expand our local industries.
All right. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Who would like to take that question from our panelists? Miss Susan. Okay. Miss Maritess?
Mom, what's the question? You are importing from China, but she's selling it also.
She was asking
Because in social media,
We are
I'm always in
encouraged to
social
import
media
from
as a vlogger and as a journalist. So we have been seeing posts from companies, maybe from China or from here, telling the audience, I mean the social media, those in social media, that they can import directly Chinese products and bring it to the Philippines. So my question is, will this pose a very negative effect on the local industries when in fact we want to expand our local industries by Filipinos, by the 110 million
Got it.
Filipinos?
All
Yeah,
right. Thank you,
yes.
ma'am. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, ma'am. Yes, I think we have to be very careful in these postings because, as you've said, mom, there's a need to protect also the local industries. So, and there is also a tendency that if you, there's this thing that the Chinese are very, sorry to mention that Chinese a group of traders. This was experienced by the garment sector years ago during the quota, the so-called transshipment. It could be very dangerous because you can be targeted, especially if our tariffs now at the moment are lower than China, no? So it can be they're just gonna use you as a decoy and then probably to be another shipping point out to the US. So I think it would be to our disadvantage. We have to be very careful and selective in what we import from China on those mga posts na yan. Ma'am,
What
the
can
government is here.
government is here. They're listening,
Bianca,
ma'am.
I'm sorry. You better answer this, Bianca.
Maybe okay. Just very quickly because we don't have much time. So maybe a few words, Bianca, from DTI.
Of course, we count on our consumers to support local industries. I think that's the best response that we can provide.
All right, but as a consumer, Maritess, should I be expected to support local even if it's more expensive? Is that what is asked of me?
Well, it's a very personal is as a consumer. Well, ideally yes, if we can support our own local industry, and the apparel side naman, it's still cheaper to import to use our own.
All right. Go ahead, Bobby.
I mean, sometimes we tend to simplify things and say imported is cheaper, but of course it comes with scale. If you're importing from the biggest producer in the world, of course it's going to be cheaper there. But one has to take everything into consideration until it's imported. And let's remember the term kanina was that overproduction, no? Some countries do make overproduction to the detriment of other countries, consuming countries like ours, no? So I think for us, the most important market is the Philippine market. And I think for any Filipino, that should be the most important market. Export helps, expands our market as companies, as industries, but the primary market really is the Philippines.
All right. We have last two questions. Lady in the green, and we have from Sir Senen. So kay ma'am muna, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Lucil from SGV. So this is
Oh.
more of a comment. I'm supposed to be part of the panel, but
You're
I'm
joining the
not-
second one, no?
Yes,
All
we're
right.
not exporter of goods, we're exporter of services, no? But just siguro to give a ray of light to our different industries, no, who are or will be affected by the Trump tariff. There are ways to minimize the impact of the Trump tariff, no? So assuming your specific products are affected, there are certain concepts that we are actually looking into so that the impact would not be directly, for example, 40+% for garments, no? Just on a high level discussion lang, there is what we call first sale concept that's being applied, meaning if the exporter of the product exports to Singapore, which is subject to the 10% Trump tariff, and Singapore exports to the US, though the goods will be exported directly to the US from the Philippines, no? So that's a triangular shipment. Then the invoice from the Philippines to Singapore, which is presumably lower than the invoice from Singapore to the US, may be used in the US for customs declaration purposes, no? But of course, this is subject to review, no, study. There is also another concept on unbundling the different composition or the dutiable value, no? For example, there are royalties or other charges that may be removed, no, from the dutiable value in order to reduce the value of the goods when they reaches the Philippines, no? So yun lang. As I said, there are ways to minimize the impact. Okay.
All right. Teaser yan, because Attorney Lucil will join us for panel 2. But before we go to panel 2, Sir Sinan, I think he has a question.
Quickly lang. Thank you for the very insightful discussions. No, Michelle, I think one of the things that we may be overlooking beyond tariffs over the short term, I think we should also be monitoring our exchange rate. Okay? Naga-appreciate po ang peso. Siyempre, BSP is here. So, kaya na, I thought that maybe I'd bring this up kasi we might be overlooking the fact that our currency is, I think, appreciating quite quickly. And we have to take a look at the other countries, how they are doing it. No? Because I think Vietnam is, while it has appreciated, because the reasoning is, it's not that the peso is strong, the dollar is weak. But everybody has the same reason. Okay? So relatively, I think we have to take a look at that over the short term. Over the long term, sorry po, no, but again, when it comes to exports, we have to look at the very basic, with or without Trump. Trump may be done in 4 years. But exports, we have to look at power cost. Very basic, productivity and competitiveness. Power cost, infrastructure natin, both hard and soft, including connectivity. Kasi kung meron kang e-commerce to be one of the omni-channels for exports, kailangan po rin natin yan. Tapos yung sinabi ng aking boss, ease of doing business, the soft parts. I think this time, it should be disruption to reality. Because it seems that trade, maliit na player tayo eh. Maybe we should actually use this time to look and address the deeper and broader things that we have to do for export. So yan, power cost, yung infra, the hard one and the soft one, and then ease of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, I know they're calling my attention already, but Ms. Maritess just has a very quick comment on what was raised by Attorney Lucil. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. It was raised earlier that there are some ways, no? You have to, I think, of course, you're from SGV, but for some of the products and some of the sectors here, there are rules, like our certificate of origin. The unbundling cannot work because our exports at the end of the day are rooted on the rules of origin, and there are documents such as the CO, Certificate of Origin, that would state it originated and was put together in the Philippines. Not a part was put together in China, and then that part, the sleeves goes to the Philippines, and then you put it in together cloth. That's a number one thing that we cannot do. And then also on the first, what's that? The first
Sale
sale.
concept.
Yeah, first sale concept. It is part of our. We can't also do that because it together with the CO and the other commercial documents in the importation, we have to really state that the country where it is being sold or being shipped out is the country, a country of where the company, the mother company is located. The most, we can't also, I just want to address that. Thank you.
Different folks for different folks. Many things. I want to end this discussion with just one sharing. When the Liberation Day tariffs were announced, Nobel-winning economist Paul Krugman, I'm part of his mail list, sent out a very interesting commentary. And the title is, Will Malignant Stupidity Kill the World Economy? He talked about how bad the policies were and took it a step forward and said the policy process was actually worse. Whether it's true or not, he said that if you ask ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, Grok, how the US can best tariff countries easily, you will get the computation that was used in reciprocal tariffs. Coincidence? We don't know. But in the possibility that Trump did ask ChatGPT, we also asked AI whether the Philippines will win or lose. And this is from DeepSeek. Full disclosure. The Philippines can exploit Trump-era tariffs by filling supply gaps in the US market and attracting diverted FDI, but must balance with diversification and domestic reforms. Success will hinge on improving infrastructure, leveraging trade agreements, and building resilient supply chains while avoiding over-reliance on any single market. Proactive diplomacy and competitiveness upgrades will be key to turning global trade tensions into sustainable growth opportunities. Is AI correct? You tell me. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our panelists in the first session. Maritess, Earl, Bobby, Dr. Sergio, Cristjan, thank you.